Thousands of people use public transport on a daily basis to travel from one place to another. And for most of the traveling, everybody prefers a bus because it is convenient and cheap. It's not that a bus driver's job is easy or something, but we all know that this job isn't something which is filled with all sorts of excitement. So why are we even talking about it? It is because the bus driver's life changed completely when he met new faces on his bus that he hadn't seen before. The story would change the way you saw bus drivers. There is so much in this story that it doesn't feel like it happened in reality. Let's see who were these two new strangers who changed everything for the bus driver. Nobody ever sleeps in the night knowing what would happen the next day. Even the bus driver wasn't expecting anything, as he has never seen anything unreal in his entire career. But that day he met with the most unbelievable event of his life. He wasn't ready to accept something like this in his life, but then things happen when they are meant to happen. Bus drivers have a very specific route on which they drive on a daily basis, and because they follow the same route every day, they have some passengers who ride to work or school, and these people, in the bus driver's term, are known as the regulars. Because these regulars travel to work every day, and just like the bus, they also follow the same route to reach the destination. It's this common route between the regulars and drivers that have made them aware of the faces that travel daily, and because of that, they can easily spot a stranger. That day, this bus driver saw two people whom he knew weren't regulars. Then who were they? Tim Watson, a Valley Transportation Authority bus driver in San Francisco, has always paid attention to his passengers. Sitting in the driving seat, he makes sure that he checks on the passengers getting on and off his bus. Some of them have even become his friends, but the moment he saw those two passengers, he knew that they weren't from around. Then who were they? People loved Tim, and whenever they get on and off the bus, they had a smile on their faces and always tried to catch up with Tim before deboarding the bus. Tim often replies to them by saying things like "take care" or "enjoy your day." In return, they would wish him the same and for his safety on the road. That day, Tim was driving on his regular route. The day was going well, and he was operating as smoothly as he can. Then, on a bus stop, a man and a boy got on his bus. Looking at them, Tim could tell that something was bothering both of them, but as he was busy driving the bus, he didn't jump onto any conclusions. To keep a check on his passengers, he kept looking at them through rear view. Tim was sure that these two strangers who had entered his bus weren't his regulars. The man, who seemed to be in his mid-20s, was looking very disturbed. He was holding the boy's hand very tightly as he didn't want the boy to go anywhere. They both chose to sit in the middle row of the bus. Clearly, something was not right with both of them. More than the guy, Tim was worried about the little kid who was clearly not up for a bus drive, but then Tim thought that kids are like that. After a while, this little kid who was with this young man started crying. A kid crying on a bus isn't something Tim hasn't seen before. Kids are very moody, and he has seen kids throwing all sort of tantrums inside the bus, and you can't do anything as they are just kids. Even Tim didn't give it much attention, but then he saw things in a different angle, and surprisingly things weren't the way he thought it was. Usually, kids start crying and then after a while, they stop. This time it was different. This little kid cried for the rest of the trip, of which Tim had no idea of where they were even going. And what was surprised Tim the most was that the other guy who was with this little kid wasn't even trying to comfort the kid. He was lost in his thoughts and didn't leave his hands for a single moment and held it very tightly. Now, why is that? Tim could see other passengers' frustration over this little kid's continuous crying. He was watching everything through a rear view. One of the passengers even asked the little boy if he was okay. It was the young man who answered to that, and the boy didn't even look up to see who the passenger was. The little boy kept crying with his head down. The young man, who seemed to be back to his senses, urged the little boy to stop crying and sleep till they reached their destination. Tim could sense the tone when he said that to the little kid, which he personally didn't like it. You should never talk to a kid like that, as they are very fragile, and if you tell them what's wrong and what's right with a proper explanation, which they would be able to understand, then they would listen to you no matter what. It was hard for Tim to keep watching the duo from the rear view, as passengers' safety was his utmost priority. On every stop, people boarded and deboarded the bus. But that duo of strangers didn't even look up to see which stop it was, as people usually do, nor did they even try to move from their seat. It was like they didn't want to get down. But why? What was going on? At the next stop, all of the passengers got down except this duo. Tim had no clue as to what was even going on with this pair. He has had enough and asked the duo, "Where are you two going?" No answer. He tried again. "Are you both all right?" Tim asked. Still no answer. Tim left them as they were because it was just the time when the bus would reach its last stop. But then the little kid said something. "I am hungry," the kid said. Between all the silence, Tim heard the kid speak for the first time, and he didn't know why was he feeling good to hear his voice. Tim was waiting for this young guy to respond to the kid. Surprisingly, he didn't. He behaved like he didn't even hear the kid. After a pause, the kid spoke again, and this time he was louder than before. "I am hungry," the kid said again. But again, no answer from the other guy. Tim didn't find the behavior of the young man who seemed like he doesn't care about the little kid who was hungry amusing. "I will stop at the gas station for a refuel. You can buy some snacks for the kid." Tim said. "No, there is no need. We are fine," the young man replied. By now, Tim was on the verge of an outburst. Being a father of 2 daughters, he felt for the little kid. Still, he stopped at the gas station. Tim stopped for refueling the bus and went to the store to buy some snacks for the little kid to eat. He bought some chips and candies kids usually love to eat. After returning to the bus, he gave the things he bought from the store to the kid. The kid with his watery eyes and innocent face looked at Tim and took the snacks from him with one hand as his other hand was held by the guy who was watching Tim and the kid through sides of his eyes. Tim left the duo as they were, and as he sat on the driver's seat, his eyes could see the little kid eating like he hasn't eaten anything for weeks. Tim smiled to himself and started the engine and geared up the bus to its usual route. But little did Tim know that he was about to find out something really surprising about the 2 passengers who were sitting on the bus just behind him. What did he find out? You two will find out soon. The bus and the trio were on the road, stopping on the stop this bus was meant to stop. Several other passengers came and left, but this duo didn't get off at any of the stops. Where were they going? What were they even doing on the bus? Is everything all right with the kids? Questions like these took over Tim's head, and he started to get worried as he can't even ask them to leave because they were just kids and looked lost. We all know it's not a good thing to check on passengers in a rearview mirror. Still, Tim was a good man, and all he cared was about the little kid who reminded him of his own kids. Something in his gut was telling him that he should pay attention to the kid. There was a strange feeling inside him that made him scratch his head, and then he figured it out. He found out what this all was about, and then things changed drastically for all 3 of them. Tim kept looking the kid from his rearview mirror, and then something clicked to him. He found out what this gut feeling was trying to tell him. He remembered the news had heard about a missing boy. Tim saw the boy, and then again he went through that missing persons report in his head just to be sure. And then something caught his eyes. According to the local newspaper, the 3-year-old boy has been missing from a library in San Francisco. After remembering the report, all that Tim could think about was the boy and the possibility of how this boy could be the same boy he had read about in the morning newspaper. Was he really the same boy, or was Tim going to make the worst mistake of his life? As we have already told you, what made Tim worried about the boy was the fact that he himself was a father of 2. His gut feeling told him that this innocent little boy on his bus could be the same boy he had read about in the newspaper. But how to prove that? Because all of this could just turn into a nightmare. If you have read or seen the missing persons report, then you might know what all sort of information they provide us with, so that if someday we see a person matching the description, we can call the authorities and help them. Tim tried remembering the other valuable pieces of information from the missing persons report. Luckily, his mind was helping him out, and he remembered that the missing 3-year-old was wearing a blue-colored shirt, shorts, and red Crocs. At that moment, Tim imagined how hard young boys' parents' life must be, not knowing where their child is and in what condition. He thought, what would he do if one day his children went missing like this, and how he won't be able to live in those moments away from his children. With that thought on mind, he saw the boy from the rearview mirror. The bus was filled with other passengers too, and he was thinking about their safety too. He was trying to take a good look at the boy amidst all the commotion that was going on the bus, as he had to be sure before he did anything about the situation. He even wanted to stop the bus and confront the man who accompanied this boy, but he stopped because of other passengers. Tim played cool, as he didn't want the man to know that he was up to something. He didn't want to alert the man because he had no idea how dangerous or innocent he was. If it indeed this was the same boy who went missing from the library in San Francisco, then this would be the best chance to reunite the family with their lost child. Tim did nothing unusual to alarm the man, and he drove the bus with the same pace, and he even stopped his urge to look constantly at his rearview. This was the golden chance, and he didn't want to ruin it. For the sake of the little kid and innocent passengers, he kept his calm and behaved like there was nothing going on. But then for a moment, Tim felt like the man has got some idea and he looked impatient to get out of the bus as soon as possible. Tim could see how impatient the man was now and he was looking for a moment to slip out from the bus with the boy. No passengers paid any attention to it as they were busy with their own lives. He can't let this opportunity go and he did all he could to make sure that the man stays on the bus along with the boy. Tim was well aware of the fact that the bus was about to reach its destination and he only has a very little time to make sure the kid is safe. He kept looking at the road and was trying hard to calm himself. His legs were shaking, which was making hard for him to drive the bus. And just like that, he figured out what he had to do. In an attempt to make things look like as they were, Tim announced through PR that one of the passengers who was in the bus before them had left his green backpack, and there is no need to panic. He said that he needs to check if the bag was still here. Tim said that one of the passengers has left his green backpack in the bus before leaving and told the passengers that before leaving he would want to see if it's still here, as the passenger has been adamant about knowing the situation of the backpack. Trying to look as professional and calm, he began the search. Tim calmly and slowly started the search. He kept telling people there was no need to worry as it's just a normal search of somebody's belongings. Tim's main motive was to get as close as he could to the boy to have a better look at the boy. The guy and this little kid were sitting in the middle and it was his only chance to see if this boy was the same boy who went missing from the library, or had he made a very grave mistake. Tim was checking under the seat where this guy and little kid were sitting. While it seemed like he was searching for the bag to other passengers, he was checking out the attire the boy was wearing. And the boy was wearing a blue shirt, plaid shorts, and red Crocs, just like the boy about whom Tim had read in the morning newspaper. Tim was now sure that it was the same boy, and the other guy is a kidnapper who took this 3-year-old kid from the library. What Tim did next changed everything. After the search was completed, Tim became sure about the little kid's identity. He returned to his seat and started planning his next step. He knew if he would try to take actions all by himself, then there was a possibility that things could go a wrong way. But then he decided not to proceed, and meanwhile he came up with a brilliant idea. The man and the boy were sitting in the middle, and the bus was filled with passengers. The sound engine was also loud, and when Tim saw the man through the rearview mirror, he saw him looking outside of the window, lost in his own thoughts. Tim saw this as an amazing opportunity. Though he was really scared, with his trembling hands he picked up the phone and made the call. While he drove the bus, he was also calling up the police. He told them about the situation and asked for their help and how he should proceed further. The description he told the police perfectly matched with the information police had on the boy. Police was quick to think on their feet and responded to the situation as soon as possible. The police told Tim about the plan and instructed him what he should do next. He listened very carefully. Although he was quite anxious about the plan still, he kept his calm and was ready to help the little boy and the police in any way he can. It was the determination to save the boy which kept him going. The police knew how terrified and nervous Tim would be, so they assured him that there was nothing to worry as they would be waiting for him at the next stop. They asked him to behave as nothing has happened, and with a fake smile and sweat on his forehead, he drove the bus. It was all on Tim and how he executes the plan. Tim kept looking at the suspected kidnapper to see if he had noticed something. It seemed like he wasn't even aware that at the next stop the police was waiting for him. Tim was happy that soon this little boy would meet his family and would smile again. He wanted to see the kid smile because every time he saw the kid he looked terrified and was crying most of the time. Tim stopped the bus at the next stop as it was planned. He could see 2 police officers in front of the bus waiting for it to stop. And when Tim reached the stop, there were several other officers there, and at that moment Tim was at ease. He knew that things would go smoothly and the boy would be saved now. Police asked the passengers not to panic and they allowed them to exit the bus one by one. While some of the passengers looked confused and were in shock, but they trusted the police and nobody dared to counter the actions of the police. The authorities were waiting for the man and the little boy. There they were. When they got off the bus, the police officers asked the man to step aside while one of the officers took the kid away from the kidnapper. They arrested the man who was resisting it, but his struggles were in vain. The police were sure that this little boy was the same boy who was taken from the library. At last, the little boy was in good hands. This little kid knew that this police was here for him and he didn't leave the police officer's hand. This time he was holding it by choice. There was relief on his innocent face. Then, the police took the man and the boy to the police station for further investigation. It turned out that the police already told the parents about the situation. The family was eagerly waiting for the miracle call, and the police told them that they are needed at the police station as soon as possible. They rushed to the police station to see their son, who went through a lot in the past few days. In the end, everything went according to the plan, and Tim was now relieved that he was able to help the little boy. From the very moment the duo entered the bus, his gut feeling told him something wasn't right. We don't know what it was, his gut feeling or intuition of a father. He was able to spot that something was wrong. Tim was also at the police station and could see the family reunion with their lost kid. Kid's mother was in tears, and the father didn't leave his son's hand for a second, was kissing him all over the face. It was a very emotional moment for everybody. We can't even imagine what this innocent kid would have gone through at this stage of his life. We pray that he overcomes this episode of his life. Not just the parents and the police, but the whole city was proud of Tim and his heroic actions that saved a kid's life. It was Tim's excellent memory, fatherly instinct, and sound judgment that made all of this possible. As they say, it is a small world, but when something like this takes place, even the small world looks like a vast place. The story was soon reported in every local newspaper and news channel, and Tim didn't even realize that he was now a celebrity. When he was interviewed by a local news channel, he just said, "I feel I just did what any father would do." We all should feel proud of Tim, because not all superheroes wear capes. People who read this story couldn't thank him enough, and everyone applauded Tim's actions. Some even called Tim a hero. Life is very unpredictable, and where it would put us next, we have no idea about that. Tim's life was changed the moment this duo entered the bus. Tim even said we should always trust our guts, as it's never wrong. The kids' family couldn't thank Tim enough. Tim brought back the light of their lives back into their lives. The family thought that they had lost their son, because we all know how crucial the first 24 hours are when you report somebody missing. Even Tim's family felt proud of him, and we can proudly say that Tim should be given the Father of the Year award. Tim has very useful advice for all of us. Tim trusted his gut feelings, and if he wouldn't have paid attention, then there was a chance that the boy wouldn't have been reunited with his family. In the interview with a local news channel, Tim said, "If you feel something in your gut, you have to go with it. Having hesitations could end up to